Welcome to Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. I have a shocking story for you today. As the daughter of a judge, this is my worst nightmare. My father served on the bench for over 20 years, and there were many times where I worried about his safety. Judges deal on a daily basis with people who are angry, they're in legal trouble, they're upset, and sometimes they're looking for anyone to blame, including the judge who oversees their case. Judges are often threatened. Although it is a crime to threaten or intimidate a judge, sadly, it's treated much like stalking. Little is done to protect the judges who are simply doing their jobs. I was happy and relieved when a new courthouse was constructed in my county and metal detectors with armed guards were stationed at the door. But before that, there wasn't much security in our town's courthouse, and the parking lot for judges, although behind a locked gate, was outside in the open, where anyone with a gun could easily take aim at a judge coming or going after court. That's changed too, but as you'll see in today's story, no matter what measures are taken to protect judges, sometimes they aren't enough. In today's story, we have a sheriff abusing his power in the most heinous ways imaginable. We're talking about inmates forced to have sex with prison officials and cops, some say judges. We're talking about authorities who abuse people and break the law. Remember to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel if you're interested in seeing more from me. It helps. I'm your host, Stacy Lee. Let's begin.
It's shocking video of a local Kentucky sheriff who's been charged with shooting a judge to death. In the video obtained by Inside Edition, you can see the accused sheriff lip-syncing with his daughter inside his patrol car. She's in the back seat wearing an orange t-shirt. Now the choice of songs is raising eyebrows.
The clip you just saw is of 43-year-old Letcher, Kentucky Sheriff Shawn M. Stines sitting in his squad car with his daughter in the back seat. I cannot play you the audio because the song is copyrighted, but they are singing the song "I Shot the Sheriff" by Bob Marley. Our story begins in the small town of Whitesburg in Letcher County, Kentucky. Only 2,000 people live in Whitesburg, and most of them know each other. The sheriff of the county is this man, 43-year-old Shawn "Mickey" Stines. Mickey had been a bailiff in the Letcher County Courthouse for years, and during that time, he had developed a friendship with the district judge, 54-year-old Kevin R. Mullins. In 2018, Mickey was elected to the position of county sheriff. Despite some issues, he was reelected in 2022. There was talk around town about Sheriff Stines. He was a good old boy. He was someone who was proud of his position. Nothing wrong with that. But he was also known as someone who might use that position to get things for himself. There had been rumors for years, but in 2022, those rumors became allegations. In 2022, a civil lawsuit was filed against Deputy Sheriff Ben Fields. Sheriff Stines was also named in the lawsuit. A woman named Sabrina Adkins, who was an inmate at the county jail, was alleging that Deputy Sheriff Ben Fields used extortion to force Sabrina and other inmates into having sex with him in return for favorable treatment while on house arrest. Sabrina Adkins' lawsuit not only alleged that Deputy Fields was forcing her and other inmates to have sex with him, but that the sex was taking place in the chambers of Judge Kevin R. Mullins, like in his actual office. Sabrina Adkins' attorney told the press, quote, "It's like they were running a brothel out of that courtroom." Now, it's important to note that Sabrina was also accusing Sheriff Stines and Judge Mullins of participating in this sexual extortion. Sabrina Adkins claims that on multiple occasions, she was forced to watch video recordings of Deputy Fields, Sheriff Stines, and Judge Mullins having sex with inmates from the jail. I mean, you talk about corruption. A second inmate, a woman named Jennifer Hill, joined the lawsuit, making the same allegations as Sabrina Adkins. Jennifer Hill has since passed away. Now, Sheriff Stines and Judge Mullins were friends. Like I said, they'd known each other for years and were often seen around town having lunch together on business days. When this lawsuit was filed by Sabrina Adkins and Jennifer Hill, of course, this affected Sheriff Stines as head of the department. It was one of his deputies that was accused of this heinous behavior. Now, people in the area immediately wanted to know if this was true. If this deputy was really abusing women from the jail, why in the hell was he comfortable doing it in the judge's chamber of all places? This type of behavior is so abhorrent that it would have to be well hidden. The last place a cop would normally go to ar an inmate is in the judge's chambers, unless the judge was aware of what was happening and was in on it. Those were the rumors, but there was another element. The judge's chambers were private and were the only place in the courthouse that did not have cameras. When Deputy Fields was with these inmates, he was in a location with a lot of cameras, a courthouse. So he took the women into the judge's chambers so they could perform their sexual favors for him. This is obviously I was going to say ballsy, but no, not going to say that. Copies of the lawsuit were passed around this small town, and people learned that Sabrina Adkins could not afford the $85 weekly fee for her ankle bracelet, the ankle bracelet that allowed her to be on house arrest instead of in jail. People on parole have to pay a fee for those ankle bracelets. I'm pretty sure it's the same thing with what's the device called that you have to blow into after you get a DUI? I'm pretty sure you have to pay for those as well. It's like payment for having the privilege. Well, Deputy Fields told Sabrina that he could help her out with her financial problem. He could help her out with that. I cannot, these men. If Sabrina wanted the $85 weekly fee to go away, all she had to do was have sex with Deputy Fields. This apparently went on for some time, and when Sabrina Adkins and Jennifer Hill filed their lawsuit, Sheriff Stines was deposed. When you are deposed, you are served papers, you are ordered to appear at a deposition to give your testimony that is recorded. This all happens when a lawsuit is filed. I've talked about this before. We don't see many gotcha moments in court like you see on TV because there is a process that takes place before the trial that's called discovery. Everything must be divulged in the process of discovery. Each side, the prosecution and the defense, the civil attorneys on the plaintiff side or defendant side, they know what is going to be said in court. Everyone that's going to testify in court has already been deposed. Being deposed made the sheriff angry because during that deposition, he had to face serious allegations that he knew one of his deputies, Ben Fields, was forcing inmates into sexual favors in exchange for reducing their fines and for better treatment. He had to face allegations that he knew about it and he did nothing about it. I read some comments on this story and some articles that said men would be so much better off if they could just keep it in their pants. The reality of situations like this is it's much more about control than it is sex. It's much more about dominance and power than it is about sex. Sex you can get anywhere. Sex you can pay for. These men do these things because they want to dominate a woman. They want power over a woman. Now, both plaintiffs in the lawsuit allege that Sheriff Stines was not only aware of what his deputy was doing, he was complicit because he took no action to stop the illegal behavior. The lawsuit accuses Sheriff Stines of deliberate indifference in failing to adequately train and supervise Deputy Fields. When the lawsuit was filed, Sheriff Stines really had no choice but to fire Deputy Fields, but by then, the damage was done. Ben Fields was fired in 2022 for conduct unbecoming, but that didn't stop the plaintiffs from pursuing the lawsuit, and the sheriff faced ongoing legal battles and a lot of embarrassment in this very small and tight-knit community. There are a lot of Southern tropes in this story. We've got the corrupt county sheriff, the slimy cops preying on vulnerable women, the small-town judge. And this town is so small that the lead county prosecutor, Matt Butler, had to recuse himself from all involvement because he and Judge Mullins are married to sisters. Their children are first cousins, but as Matt Butler said, more like siblings. Now, I just have to stop for a moment. Judges are not supposed to have any relationship with the attorneys who appear before them, like at all. When my father became a judge, he had to stop golfing and going to lunch with most of his friends because a lot of them were attorneys. And as a judge, he could no longer have a personal relationship with them. That's the way it's supposed to work, even in a small town. So to hear that this judge and the county prosecutor are brother-in-laws married to a pair of sisters, that is, I'm trying to be nice here. That is not usual. That is not ethical in most places, but that is very Southern. I am not even sure how this county or this district was getting around that because it is not allowed. There was a lot of abuse and a lot of stereotypes and a lot of stress in little old Whitesburg, Kentucky. And then there was a lot of grief when the town judge ended up murdered. It's a warm Thursday afternoon in the early fall of 2024. Sheriff Stines, known as Mickey to his friends, and Judge Kevin Mullins head to lunch together just as they do on many days. The two talked a lot. They'd been through a lot together. Deputy Fields had been fired, but the lawsuit was ongoing. And unbeknownst to people in their lives, there was tension brewing between the two old friends, the sheriff and the judge. The two men had lunch together and then they headed back to the courtroom to finish their afternoon duties. Now, because of the sex scandal involving Deputy Ben Fields, the courthouse installed cameras in the judge's chambers. Those chambers were no longer private and everything inside was recorded on video, no audio, only video. The video taken from this afternoon shows the judge meeting with 4 people for a while in his chambers. Perhaps he was mediating a dispute or discussing cases. That information has not been released, but we know that there were 4 people in the judge's chambers on this day. At around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Sheriff Mickey Stines walked into the outer chambers of Judge Mullins' office and told his secretary that he needed to speak with Judge Mullins in private. Usually in judges' chambers, there is a secretary and a bailiff, and they sit outside the door of the judge's chambers, the judge's office. In all the courthouses I've ever been to, where my dad has judges' chambers, the judge has a private bathroom. There's usually a couch. The chambers are more comfortable than usual business offices because the judge cannot leave the secure area of the courtroom once they're in. If you've ever been in a courthouse, you know that there is a public area and then there is the courthouse behind the public area, usually behind glass. The court clerks stand behind the glass, filing paperwork, taking fines, things like that. And then the judge's chambers are behind that area. You have to have security clearance to get into the backside of the courthouse. The judge's offices are behind locked doors, so someone who might have a ruling against them doesn't get angry and try to go after the judge. There are layers of security that the public has to go through in order to get to the actual judge's chamber. Sheriff Stines presents outside Judge Mullins' chamber door and says he needs to go inside. The sheriff tells the secretary it's urgent and it's private. So the 4 people in the judge's chamber are escorted out of the office and Sheriff Stines enters. Sheriff Stines and Judge Mullins exchange words. Like I said, there is no audio, but you can tell the 2 men are arguing. What was said, we will probably never know. I don't think it's a stretch to imagine they were talking about how the lawsuit was going, and if I had to bet money, I'd say that the judge was not going to be supportive of the way Sheriff Stines had handled or had not handled the deputy's bad behavior. That's what you'd assume. I think this argument was about the lawsuit. But as the 2 men argue, Sheriff Stines makes a phone call. We later find out he is trying to call his daughter. Then Sheriff Stines grabs the judge's phone and tries to make a phone call from the judge's phone. Why does he do that? We learn later on that Judge Mullins was allegedly having an inappropriate relationship with Sheriff Stines' 17-year-old daughter. Sheriff Stines is upset because he knows that his friend, the judge, has his child's phone number in his phone. I wish I was making this up. I wish I was making this up. So while the judge and Sheriff Stines might have been arguing about the lawsuit, we learn later that Mickey Stines is also very angry that his old friend is having an inappropriate relationship with his 17-year-old daughter. That's what he believes. Wow. Wow. Sheriff Shawn Mickey Stines pulls out his service revolver and points it at Judge Mullins. I have had to censor this video some, but as you can see, the sheriff pulls the trigger and fires just feet away from the judge, who is completely helpless, trapped in the corner of his office, unarmed, facing an angry man with a gun. The judge hides under his desk, desperately trying to find any form of cover to protect him against the bullets coming from his friend's gun, but the desk offers little protection. There is a moment when the judge looks up right at his friend, and you can see he knows. He knows he is going to die. Sheriff Stines cowardly walks around the desk and fires more shots into Judge Kevin Mullins' body. The judge continues to try and protect himself in the corner of his office. Mickey Stines leans down to get a better shot at the judge and fires again. 54-year-old Judge Kevin R. Mullins is dead. He has been murdered in his office by his old friend, the sheriff. People just outside the judge's chambers heard the shots. At first, they thought the sounds might be firecrackers coming from outside, but as Mickey Stines exited and people outside the office saw the look on his face and the gun in his hand, they knew. Mickey Stines very calmly walked outside the courthouse and surrendered himself to the police, who had been called to the scene by courthouse employees. The sheriff was taken into custody, and word spreads that not only is the county sheriff in jail, he's in jail for killing the judge. They all know.
There are new details in an investigation out of Letcher County, Kentucky, after a judge was fatally shot in his chambers, allegedly by the county sheriff. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. I'm John Jenko. Kentucky State Police say that happened in the Letcher County Courthouse in Whitesburg yesterday. Investigators report that 54-year-old district judge Kevin Mullins was shot after an argument inside the courthouse. State police say the 43-year-old Letcher County Sheriff Shawn Stines was the shooter. He is in custody, charged with first-degree murder. News Channel 11's Ansley Daniel is live from Kentucky, where that investigation is ongoing. Ansley, what's the latest information to come out of this case?
Well, John, we've been here in Whitesburg all morning, and it is pretty quiet in this small mountain town. However, what happened inside of this closed courthouse yesterday is certainly the talk of the town. Now, those new allegations absolutely just came into our newsroom, so we're still digesting those ourselves, and I'm sure the folks around here are doing the same. Now, that federal lawsuit was filed Monday, and it alleges that a Letcher County Sheriff's deputy repeatedly sexually abused a woman in those very same chambers. Now, that woman claims that the former deputy, named as Ben Fields, forced her to have sexual relations for 6 months in exchange for staying out of jail. Now, Fields did plead guilty to raping the prisoner while she was on home arrest. He was sentenced to jail on charges of rape, sodomy, perjury, and tampering with evidence. But the lawsuit accuses the sheriff, Shawn Mickey Stines, of deliberate indifference in failing to adequately train and supervise Fields. Now, Stines is being held in the Leslie County Jail. It's unclear when or where he will appear in court, and it's also unclear when this courthouse will reopen. Live in Whitesburg, Ansley Daniel, News Channel 11.
The killing of Judge Mullins sent shockwaves through this tight-knit Appalachian town. Like I said earlier, the county prosecutor immediately recused himself from the case, citing social and family ties to Mullins. Ben Fields later pled guilty to third-degree sodomy, tampering with a prisoner's monitoring device, and second-degree perjury.
Eastern Kentucky Sheriff's deputy has received a sentence for several charges, including rape and sodomy. WYMT's Chandler Wilcox gives us the latest on that case.
Former Letcher County Sheriff's Deputy Ben Fields was indicted on several charges, including third-degree sodomy, tampering, and perjury. Fields faced Pike County Circuit Judge Eddie Coleman via Zoom, with victim Sabrina Atkins in attendance.
I recognize that Ms. Atkins is a victim in this case, but I'm also believing that the criminal justice system is a victim in this case when people behave this way.
Coleman sentenced Fields to 7 years in prison. Victim Sabrina Atkins expressed a lot of emotion.
I hope just come when you see the impact this has had on me and my family. Say how much this is taking time for me and my son. Here's one thing you gave me back. was knowing I was a strong, independent woman.
Fields will also be listed as a registered sex offender as a result of his actions.
You're going to do outpatient sex offender treatment, and you're not to have contact with anyone with the named victim in this case.
During the investigation of Ben Fields, prosecutors discovered a woman who claims she has seen, with her own eyes, a video of Judge Mullins having sex with a woman in his chambers at the courthouse.
He does have some videotapes of some stuff in the judge's chambers.
What kind of stuff?
Just with girls, sexual and stuff.
What describe? Have you seen the videos?
I've seen one partly, just him having sex with girls for the people to get out of jail.
Who was having sex?
Ben and just some higher ups up there.
Who?
The judge and.
You saw the video?
Yeah.
What did you see on the video? I mean,
I've seen Judge Mullins having sex with a girl.
Who was the girl?
I don't know. Because I don't know a lot of people from over there.
Where was it at?
In his office, in the judge's chambers.
Is that the same place that you were meeting Ben? Is that how you know it was a judge in chambers? And this was Judge who?
Mullins.
The local media began publishing stories saying that basically the judge and the sheriff were running a brothel out of the courthouse. The attorney for Sabrina Adkins said, quote, "They, meaning the women prisoners, know a simple phone call to the judge that you violated a term of the ankle bracelet or a drug court means you're going back to jail, unless you are willing to play along." Adkins' attorneys state that because she could not afford the $85 weekly fee for her ankle bracelet, Ben Fields was charging her another way. Well, that's one way to put it. Right now, it is basically up to you, the listener, to decide if the allegations that Judge Mullins was also having sex in exchange for favors are true or false. I personally have not seen enough information at this point to form an opinion. Do I think there's a good possibility that it was happening? I do. These are obviously some pretty unscrupulous characters here, and I think you guys probably feel a lot the same way. It's always shocking to hear something like this is going on, but at the same time, you're like, well, it doesn't surprise me. It's kind of a double-edged sword. After the shooting and after Mickey Stines was in custody, it became apparent very quickly as to what his defense would be: insanity.
Are we in a position to know if there's going to be a request for any type of evaluation?
Judge, I've spoken with my client. My apologies, Judge. I thought you were speaking. So what we have spoken with Mr. Steele about is that we do believe that there will be an issue as to criminal responsibility. We have consulted with, folks with regards to that issue. I reached out to Mr. Steele and we basically decided that we would raise this as a joint motion. I know that, once we provide that notice, the Commonwealth is entitled to have their expert evaluate Mr. Stines, and out of expediency, I believe that Mr. Steele and I would ask for an order for that evaluation to go ahead and take place. There are a couple of issues I did want to address with regard to the examination. I don't think they will be at issue at all, but I did want to make a couple of notes. But that's how we intend to proceed, Your Honor, with the court's blessing.
All right. And in regards to that, what I generally would do, and I think that's probably the best course of action, to go ahead and get that in the pipeline. It is going to require, what I would recommend is that we go ahead and get the order entered in regards to competency and criminal responsibility. I might as well go ahead and that address, since we're going to be doing that, versus we've seen it sometimes be piecemealed, and I don't want to delay the proceedings if we would have to go back and redo that. I know KCPC will initially do a video interview of him initially, and then we'll notify, which is now required by law, and then they will then notify the court if a inpatient evaluation would be required.
Your Honor, so and I understand the court's position, and certainly we do not raise the issue as to competency, but I understand the court and the expediency of going ahead and examining that. I understand that, but I did want to make clear that our notice only concerned the criminal responsibility, Your Honor.
Okay.
But the other issue that I wanted to make sure that we discussed was my understanding with the, I believe it's Shawn's law that made it more clear that our expert should be able to participate in the proceedings at KCPC, and I would ask that I'll go ahead and identify him as Dr. Eric Drogan.
Okay, I'm very familiar with Dr. Drogan.
We would ask that Dr. Drogan be allowed to participate pursuant to the statute. And then the second piece of that is, and generally I believe this is standard procedure, but I believe that normally KCPC gives both parties an opportunity to submit materials that they may want reviewed.
Sure.
We certainly would like to make sure that we have that opportunity.
Absolutely. Yeah, both sides will have. I know the more information the KCPC's provided, the more effective the evaluation will be.
As it stands right now, former Sheriff Mickey Stines will be pleading insanity. There is no way he can overcome the evidence of his crime because it was caught on camera. What do you think about this? I believe the deputy was having sex for favors. I don't know about the judge yet, but I want to know what you think. I think it's quite clear that there is massive corruption going on in this little Kentucky area. I will keep you updated as this case progresses, and I will let you know the outcome. Well, somebody better clean their act up down there in Kentucky. Thank you for joining me today on Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. Please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me. I want to give a special thank you to my patrons. I appreciate you guys so much. The fact that you support me on Patreon really honestly has kept me going for a while now. You know, I've got my podcast, Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. It is on Apple, Spotify, and Amazon. And you know, we've still got our fundraiser going. Our community is trying to raise money to donate to police departments that have cold case DNA in storage that's never been tested. We're trying to help solve some cold crimes. If you watch this short video on my channel, it will tell you all the ways you can donate a few dollars, and I will take that money and put it towards the cause. Thank you for your feedback on the new shorts that I have started doing once a week. It seems like you guys enjoyed it, and I'm here to bring you what you want to see. I'm always going to do these deeper dives on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but I'm going to try to bring you as many little shorts as I can too. By short, I mean like 10 minutes, maybe 15 tops. I hope you're well, my friends. Stay safe and be kind to each other, and I will see you next time on Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. Bye.